Okay, so we've already been to Dollywood today, and it's pouring out there, so I let the kids talk me into going on a water ride. That was not super smart. So I'm freezing, and I'm getting all warmed up. I got my scarf on. There's no sun out today, but there sure is a lot of beautiful color change. So I thought I'd let you enjoy it with me. Maybe you can see it in the background there. Yay! Yep, see? What a great background. So I'm at the Dollywood Dreammore Resort, and look at, there's butterflies everywhere. Put wings on your dream, she says. I love when I'm in places where it's just constantly reinforcing that. There's butterflies everywhere. And gosh, I love everything Dolly stands. Just soaking this in for the next couple days. So let's get right to it. We are on week 2 of chapters 3 and 4 from 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Hi everyone. I'm Cammie Dempsey, and I am your coach through this 10-week series. Hey, here's the deal. I just think it's powerful to get together each Monday and have the accountability to, dive into this topic of leadership. And I really enjoyed chapter 3 and chapter 4, and it was a really good one for me. So let's go ahead and get started. It's all right if you're still waiting on your book. I'm getting lots of questions. You don't even have to read with us. You can just chime in, but I'm telling you, the information is going to come across so much better if you are reading along with us. And I do want to encourage you to let your team know right now we're live. This Periscope will be up for 24 hours. I'm not going to change to horizontal this week because when I did last week, it kind of messed with my Periscope and I couldn't get it up on YouTube. So I did make another one that is up on YouTube week 1. And so if you missed that and you want to go back and watch that, feel free to do so. And again, we'll meet here every Monday together. So if there's something we're talking about today that's just hitting home for you, make sure you tap your screen, give lots of hearts. That's how you give hearts, by tapping your screen. And if you want to share and make sure everybody's getting on today, jumping on, go ahead and swipe to the right or swipe up and share this Periscope. You can share it right on your Twitter or your Facebook as well. So I'm really excited that you're here. Let's go ahead and tackle this together. So let's go ahead and start with chapter 3. Chapter 3 is the law of process. Now, if you have been plugging in with us, you've heard me say something over the last couple of weeks, and that's this, that success in business, success in anything does not happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a day. It happens day by day. And as I was reading this chapter, chapter 3, the law of process, I was reminded of that because leadership is the same way. Leadership is like investing in the bank. It's like compound interest. When I was a math teacher in middle school, one of my favorite topics was exponential growth and compound math. And that's what leadership is like. It's something you invest in day by day. And it builds, everything you're learning one day builds upon the next. And, before you know it, you look back and you got all these people following you. And remember last week we learned that leadership is influence. And if you don't have people following you, then your leadership isn't where it should be, because leadership isn't a command position. It's a inspire people to follow position. So let's talk about the law of process, which, by the way, more and more people are chiming in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Periscope today. We are on chapter 3 of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and we'll jump into chapter 4 here in a minute. I'm so happy that you joined me. So, leadership is a collection of skills. It's a process, something that you don't just learn overnight. And we all are on an adventure of leadership. We're learning and growing every day. And no matter what position of leadership you are in, depending on what you're working on, you're learning a different skill set from that. So, we're collecting skills as leaders, all of which can be earned and can be learned and improved. It's not something you're just born with. We talked about that last week quite a bit. There's many intangible factors for a leader, and that's why it takes seasoning to be effective. It does take those experiences. It does take successes. It also takes failures, and we're going to get into that more when we talk about chapter 4. But leaders do not mean being a good leader doesn't mean being a perfect leader. It means, continuing to keep your head in the game in spite of when you don't reach your goals, or in spite of when you fall flat on your face, you get back up, you dust yourself off, you learn from it, and in the future, when you try something similar, you'll go at it in a much better or different way, I should say. So it's never late to start the process, and someday you will reap the reward that is called the law of process. So do not expect hundreds of thousands of millions of people to follow you immediately. If you have a title, again, that doesn't mean that you're a leader and that you have influence. It means you have a title. And this law of process is going to help you become a better leader every day. So work on leadership day by day, just like you would work on success in your business, on your team. It's not a one and done type thing. It's daily, okay? You're making investments daily in your leadership growth. Here, let me read to you this quote that I found on page 28 of your book. So if you're reading the book, if you didn't highlight this, I mark my book all up. I write in my book, and I love that champions don't become champions in the ring. They are merely recognized there. Okay, so having your huge wins or your big successes aren't going to happen just that day. It's really going to come from a lot of days in a row of you putting in the time, of you being consistent and disciplined. And, I think we talked before about it's those daily consistent activities that, become habits, that become your character, which eventually points you towards your destiny. The same with leadership. Okay. So if you're new to leadership and you're not new, let's say you're not new to leadership, you need to embrace this law of process. It's not going to happen overnight. And if you're setting yourself up for that, you're setting yourself up for failure, discouragement, and just discouragement, I think, is the best word that I could put with that. Okay, so leadership doesn't develop in a day. It develops over a lifetime. That's the way I want to leave chapter 3. Leadership is not something that happens in a day. It happens over a lifetime. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to chapter 4. It's called the law of navigation. Now, there's a couple things I want to point out about chapter 4. And I think the first thing I want to say is the secret to the law of navigation is preparation, okay? Leaders who are good navigators are capable of taking their people just about anywhere, okay? And the best way to do that is by preparation. I love the example that they gave in the beginning of chapter 4 about just knowing the beginning of their trip from the end of their trip, and just preparing for each leg of that trip along the way. That's what a good leader does. All right, so I want you guys to hear this, okay? Every past success and failure is a source of wisdom when you look at this law of navigation, okay? You're going to learn from the things you didn't do well in, as well as you're going to grow from the things you did do well in, all right? So how do we grow becoming, I think it's important that we know how we can become better navigators. Well, I think the first thing is draw on your past experiences, things that you've done in the past. They will help you know how to attack or approach things in your future when it comes to leading a team. I also think good navigators are humble and open to listening to others. That doesn't mean that you only ask people that have been in leadership longer than you. Sometimes that means you ask new leaders. You ask them questions. How are they doing what they're doing? It's being humble enough to ask the right questions and not just thinking that the longer you've been in means the more value you have. That's not, to me, that's not leadership, because leadership is something that we're all in process from the day that we're born. I don't believe people are born with leadership gifts. I believe it's part of their environment, and it's something they're learning day by day from the minute they're born, and God is probably preparing them for the life of their destiny. And when it comes to leadership, there's a lot of things we can learn in childhood, in our young adult life, into our later adult life, and we can apply all of that. But don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be too prideful to ask questions, because you're setting yourself and your team up for hurt. Or you're going to make it harder on yourself than it needs to be. So no matter how much you learn from the past, it will never tell you all you need to know about the future. So stay humble, ask questions, and know that you can learn a lot about navigation from what others have to say. Another way you can become a better navigator is examine the conditions before making commitments. One thing I've learned from my dad is he never moves too quickly on things. I don't I don't think you can move too slowly. I do think you can move too quickly. And I think, sometimes we get excited about things, but I think really take time to examine all of it before you make that decision, because it's not just something that will impact you. It's going to impact your entire team. So, make your moves cautiously and realize you can never move too slow. I think, growing to be a good navigator, I love this one. Okay. Is representing both faith and fact. You've got to have faith that you can take your people all the way. And if you can't confidently make the trip in your mind, then you're definitely not going to be able to take that trip in real life. So it's taking, it's difficult to balance, optimism and realism, intuition and planning, faith and fact, but that's what it takes to be an effective navigating leader. And it's something we can learn and grow in. Okay. So ask the right questions. Ask, when I'm thinking about asking other people, I would say, have you ever done this before? Or somebody that is doing it. Tell me pros, cons. If you could do something different, what would that look like? How would that be? All right. So thank goodness, just like in business, you're not alone. Even when you are the owner, you're not alone. You can reach out and ask for help. Same in leadership. And that's why I love network marketing. I love network marketing because while we're in business for ourselves, we are not by ourselves. And, I love collaborating with my sideline sisters and brothers. I love collaborating with the people that have joined my team, sometimes that have had experience that I've never had, and they bring a totally new perspective to the table. Love that. And I love the people that have been in longer. They've taken the arrows more often, and they started taking them sooner. And there's so much that I can learn from them as well. So, I don't think, let me see what my notes say. I can't read my notes. Okay, so let's talk about this law of navigation. What if you're not any good at the law of navigation? Does that mean you're going to fail as a leader? I don't think it means you're going to fail as a leader. I think you're going to make it a lot harder on yourself. And so for those of you that think, gosh, I don't really need that, I'm doing fine, I just want to remind you that leadership is hard enough on its own. Take the wisdom of people that have been in leadership longer than you and know that this law of navigation is extremely important to the potential success of your team, but not just a one-time success, but having success over and over and over again. Nobody wants to be a one-hit wonder, right? And just because you have a title doesn't mean that you're a leader. It just buys you time to build your influence. Okay. I remember that from last week, and I thought that was powerful. All right. So couple little tips. The larger the group that you're leading, the greater your need for this law of navigation will be. That's for sure. So let's talk about, they had a great mnemonic device and it said plan ahead. That's what the law of navigation. So when you think of law of navigation, it means plan ahead. Predetermine your course of action. That's the P. L, lay out your goals. Make sure, what are your goals of why you would do this? Okay. Make sure that's clear, not just for you, but notify your key leaders. I jumped ahead. The A stands for adjust your priorities, because we all know that we have time for what we really want to do. Notify your key leaders. In my line of work in network marketing, that would be the right lines of leaders. And we always want to make sure we're edifying our lines of sponsorship. So plan, that was P, predetermined course of action. L, lay out your goals. A is adjust your priorities. N is notify your key leaders. Remember, we're respecting lines of leadership. Allow time for acceptance. That's A in ahead. Allow time for acceptance. You got to give people time to buy in. And again, if you're a leader of leaders, you want to make sure that your leaders are on board with you. It's going to make for a much greater impact as whatever you're doing is initiated. H stands for head into action. We can talk about it all day long, but if we don't take action, it's really hard to see results, right? All right, the E on ahead is expect problems. And that's that's the mindset of a leader, right? There's going to be challenges. The A is always point to success. We can focus on problems all day long, or we can focus on the positives. And I think what we need to do is keep casting that vision of where we're headed in spite of any, pits that we might hit on our way there. We want to focus on what the goal is. We want We want to stay focused on the prize, if you will, and that's continuing to cast that vision. Always point to success. Where are we going? And then daily, we need to review the plan. So plan ahead. That is how you really put this law of navigation into play. Barriers to putting new courses of action into play is fear of change. People have a hard time with change. A strong leader, a mentor of mine once taught me, though, that you can't take what got you where you are to get to that next level. You're going to have to do something different. So we want to stay creative, and that's part of this law of navigation, is taking people into uncharted territories. What's another boundary? Ignorance, pride. Sometimes the more we know, the more we think we know, and the less we need to learn from others. So stay humble, very important. Another barrier is uncertainty of the future. Hey, that's where faith comes in, right? And then sometimes it's just a lack of imagination. And that's why it's so good as leaders to surround yourself with people that will help you collaborate, and that you guys can brainstorm with. I love having my sideline sisters and brothers to help me collaborate and just stay creative. Because we're all different. We're all those different personalities that we're bringing together, and we're all going to think of things different. And I love when we collaborate because it helps us all be better, okay? So that's law number 4 in our 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. And that's the end of week 2. So we've, week 1, let me go through just the table of contents of what we're covering here. Week 1 is, I can't get to it. I could work backwards. Okay, week 1 was the law of the lid, that you can only go as far as, your team can only go as far as you, so you want to keep raising that lid so your team can keep raising their levels of success. Law of influence, you can't be a leader without influence. There'll be no one there following you, right? Title doesn't get you far, it just buys you time. The law of process. The law of process, that this leadership is a journey, okay? And one of my dear friends says all the time, your journey is your journey, and that is the case with leadership as well. So take it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, and continue to push yourself in this area of leadership. You will not regret the investment. No matter what you do, leadership can go anywhere with you. And the 4th one is the law of navigation, and that's planning ahead, all right?